I'm going to record right now. We are recording, so go ahead.
I see. I've got a little red flag on my picture.
Yep.
Did everyone get the mailing from Jim? I'll bet they did. Thank you, Jim, for the mailing.
You're welcome.
Shall we go down the agenda, or did you need anything to start off the Zoom session, Jim, that we haven't already covered?
No, we're all good. You're all here. We can all hear each other. That's part of the Open Meetings Act. And we are recording this, which is also a prerequisite of the Open Meetings Act per COVID. So we are good to go ahead and start business.
Okay. The Rick Scardino is not planning to attend.
He is not.
Okay, that's fine. I just wondered if he might be attending. We've called to order any visitors' business. Apparently none. We have no visitors, so we can't have any visitor business. We've got to approve the meeting, approve the minutes of the August 18th meeting. Did everybody get a chance to look at that?
I looked at it. I saw a typo when I first looked at it. I checked it again today, and now I can't find the typo. So.
Okay.
I'll look through it again, Jeanette, and see if I see it.
You know, Jim, I got one on the second page, maybe.
Okay.
Let's see. It's right in the middle of the page. That paragraph right in the middle that starts out additional pathways.
Yes.
You say additional pathways will we be? It's just
Oh,
take
right.
out the we, right?
Thank you.
Now there's one other sentence that I wasn't quite sure. Oh, I didn't mark it, I guess. Excuse me. Well, I don't see it now, and it wasn't anything major, but it was a sentence that I had to read it twice. But I don't see it now, and it wasn't. If I think of it, I'll call you back.
Or shoot me an email, whatever.
I will.
I'll look through it again for typos and see what I see.
I know it was not on the front page, so.
Okay.
Okay, that's it then. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Is there a second?
A second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? Acceptance meetings have been, the minutes have been accepted.
Thank you.
I guess old applications, we have none to look after. I do have a question about the application that we had in our last meeting. I just wondered what the status of that is. After we made our recommendations, did our recommendations and the entire package go back to the Planning Commission at that point, Jim? Is that where it sits right now?
That is the process that will be followed.
Okay.
They asked that this be continued to the November 3rd meeting, and the issue being changes to the county stormwater regulations, which may have an impact on the design of their subdivision. They're trying to make it work with the new regulations, with the design that you all saw. But if that doesn't work, they may have to amend that subdivision design, that plat, that plan that you all looked at last time. I need to contact them because I have deadlines coming up for publication, but it's now targeted for November 3rd. That could change.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. That November 3rd is the meeting date for the Plan Commission?
That's correct.
And they're the one, what is the reason that it has to be revised? Because
it may need to be revised because there have been updates, I guess you could say, to the county stormwater management regulations.
Okay.
These updates are more stringent than the current regulations that we have, and I believe it has to do with rainfall data and compensatory storage. And they're trying to make it work within this new data with the same subdivision plan that you saw. If they can't do that, then they may have to make revisions to that plan. And they don't want to go to the Planning Commission and get a preliminary approval, only have to come back and amend that preliminary approval because of the stormwater issues. So they're trying to work through those with the plan that you all saw.
Okay. I guess they do have some wetland area in that development, but anyway, they've got everything they need from us, and it's on their table now. Good. Oh, you've got on your minutes on your agenda items number 6A. Welcome, new member. Welcome, Maggie. We're happy to have you if we haven't told you yet.
Thank you.
We're very happy to have you. And we got every chair filled. We don't have to be so nervous about a couple absentees anymore.
Good. Be here.
Maybe we might even meet in person in the village hall one of these months.
Eventually, I'm sure.
I don't see it coming though. Okay, we've got the next item is a discussion of natural plantings in the landscape islands. This is an issue that Rick Scardino was very much interested in, and we discussed it at our last meeting. One of the things, and I'm not quite sure who provided it, but in the handout for the meeting, we got a very lengthy handout with a lot of notes and comments and pictures about how to fix up medians. I don't know where that came from, Jim. Did you find that, or did Rick provide it, or what?
No, I found that, and I actually thought it to be fairly useful. Many of the communities in there that have islands are more urban than we are, but I thought there were some thoughts in there that may be useful to this effort. You're correct, Kelly. Mr. Scardino brought that up. We discussed it pretty much. Is this something that should be considered? And I think the answer to that was yes. And then the issue became, what kind of plantings would be most attractive and best suited to those locations. And again, I think the Roundtable Successful Medians handout that I included had some thoughts on that. I did take this to the village board as part of my report to them on the activities of boards and commissions. And in the memo that I sent to you, they thought it was a good idea. They were very conscious of implementation, and with things being what they are, when this could possibly be implemented, don't know. There were three things that they had emphasis on. One, preliminary suggestions for plantings in the islands, the fiscal impacts and costs associated with it, and any suggestions for the plant list for the medians. I think that we maybe perhaps put together some sort of mini plan, if you will, or memorandum or something that could be used as a reference tool for suggestions on how these landscape islands could be naturally landscaped. I did also include the contract from Milu to mow them. I believe we pay them about $1,000 a year just for mowing, if my memory serves me correctly from what I sent.
You think it would be $1,000 a year just for one median, or is that what they're charging for all medians now?
I believe that was for all of them. I did include the latest contract in your packet. It's fairly lengthy. I brought a hard copy here so I can try to take notes and.
Yes, I know I have one, and I looked at it also. I guess my first impression was, that seems like a pretty reasonable price for all the work that they appear to be doing.
Yeah,
I guess I understand that there's going to be some additional charges if they get into special projects, but that's
correct.
to be expected, I think.
Well, I take that back. For the Route 83 medians for fertilization, $1,050. For watering of trees in Route 83 and 22 medians, $65 an hour, not to exceed $650.
And if you know, it's already budgeted in for $650. I noticed that last night when I was reading it over. They've already got it budgeted in for the max.
Right. And then if you look at mulch around the trees and such for the medians, it's $2,700. And then they've got to break out for their labor costs and that kind of thing. So
Well, it certainly would
it's
be.
actually a bit more than that for the whole package for the maintenance as it stands right now. Trying to do some quick math here.
Now,
Closer to $4,000 to do the medians.
For all medians, it's 4,000.
That's the way I look at the contract. Actually, $39.15, but to talk round numbers, we'll just call it 4,000.
Well, I don't think we would have any need to look for another supplier or a service provider. Apparently, the village has been pleased with Milieu. I don't know where he got that name. Milieu is. I don't even know how to say it. I guess that would be French, right? But anyway, he would, I'm sure, be happy. I would think to be happy to take on another piece of work, and I would expect him to add a few bucks to the contract. But it shouldn't be. We can negotiate that, and if it's too expensive, we can look for different alternatives, I guess. But I think I would expect to plan on working with, I know I looked at his name on one of the signed contracts, but I forget what it was, but and have him, I don't know whether he's in the position to do designs and build or anything like that.
Right.
He should, I think he works in a lot of villages and towns in the suburbs on highway, on public roads. And he surely knows how we can avoid salt damage or what kind of plants we can use that will stand up under a drift or a mountain of snow once in a while. And he would be a good one, I think, to consult with, at least. I would think.
A quick question for, I don't know if it's Kelly or it would be to Jim, is what's the length of the medians, and again, what medians do we have to work with, and the length involved would be one of the, and do we do all of them or do we do partial of them? I was looking through that graphic at 23 pager, and I don't know if it's clearly stated where the medians are.
Well, I think when we talked, we were talking about the Route 83 and Old McHenry Road intersection. There's a median there. I don't think it's too large, and I don't think it goes too far up the street. But I think we also got from the board that they're interested in starting off slowly, I think, at first. Yeah. And if we can pick one or two medians, especially one or two that are on one of the main routes in or out of town, we can see what kind of results we can get
I know there was some discussion, the one on Route 83 would be from where 53 North, so it's a very wide median in front of the nursing home there. And that's a wide one. And then the other one came up that would be easier possibly to get some money would be the one from the fire department going into downtown Long Grove. If I'm correct, those were the two possibilities.
Yes, I think the one by the fire department, I looked at it once, but I forgot where how long it is and that kind of thing. But I think it also extends toward 53.
Right. But the median, and I'm just going to call it the fire station one.
Yeah.
If you would, it's much narrower. So if we were to do some planting, and I put my hands on, I'm a visual guy, we would probably need 3 feet wide worth of plantings, or we could come up something. If we were to go to 83, that median there has got to be 12 feet wide, almost if there's enough room for a left-hand turn to be put in there. Not that they'd need it, or it should be. But in that case, if we were going to put 3 feet by the firehouse, the fire station location, we would need 6 to 8 feet along the 83 corridor there. And some of it came in, I think we talked about it, is which one would the board, Long Grove, say would they be more willing to pay for, and which one would benefit Long Grove? And again, which one would be easier to care for? Just a couple thoughts.
Jim, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Jim or Kevin, is this the only bid that we have, that the village has for that service? This is
Yeah.
the only bid?
It's not a bid, it's a contract.
Oh, it's a contract. Okay.
What I
it's not
sent
the
you
bid.
is actually the contract. I think it's a
Okay.
3-year contract.
Okay.
And the latest extension is what I sent you for prices for, what they're doing. One thought that I had in looking at the roundtable successful medians came from, I think, Milwaukee. And they had several bullet points in there that said, what makes sustainable boulevards sustainable? Low maintenance plant composition, simplistic designs, et cetera, et cetera. But I like the second bullet point, fewer but larger landscape beds. So what if we had a combination of a hybrid? So like, let's say on the end, we have all the nice natural plantings, and then there's turf grass, and then another planting bed, and then turf grass. And Rick, that kind of goes along with your test plot idea. If we had smaller beds inside the existing turf grass beds that were sort of a test to see how it worked, then if they're successful, they could be expanded. If they're not successful, they could revert back to turf grass.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful about the height of some of these plantings. They can't get too high or they start obstructing view. And I've seen some efforts to landscape the medians in some other villages around here, where the median gets a little narrower. I've seen many of them, instead of putting in plants, shrubs and grasses and such, they put some paving blocks. And I think they look good, and they're obviously no maintenance involved, really. And that might fill in some of the spaces, not all.
Well, maybe types of plants is the first place we start.
I didn't hear that, Jim.
I said maybe the types of plants that would be appropriate is a good place to start. Then we would know what those would cost, and then we could identify areas where they would be appropriate.
So
I
this is,
think that's right.
and I did a little work on potential plants. I went looking for articles that would talk about plants that were tolerant of salt. and of pollution. That's one of the major issues for that. And I did take the time to go through a list of about 100 plants. And of those, there were 2 grasses that were native. And there were 2 herbaceous plants, flowering plants that were native. One of them likes wet. So that took this list down to 3 types of plants that might be able to be used in a median. None of them are real tall, so it meets that criteria. And this is a list of salt tolerant plants. I don't know about pollution tolerant plants yet.
What about trees as well? Yeah. What about trees as well? Like in the larger gaps between the front and the back, if you put, some trees too.
There were trees on the list. I did not spend time trying to figure out which of those were native to Lake County.
Kelly, if I can suggest, or I would, is maybe we would have a on-visit site. We could meet at the fire department or something. And really, I'm not sure what the widths of the medians are and the curb length and what trees are placed there, just to get a visual look and say, hey, we want to, it's 10 feet wide and we want to take up 3 feet of it. Or, what the width would be, what the dimensions would be. And once we have that, maybe create a plan of what we could put in it. And again, I don't know if all of us want to, and I'd be glad to meet somebody there if everybody wants together, but let's take a visual of what we have.
Right, I agree.
That's not a bad thought. Let me contact the village engineer and see if I can get a cross-section.
Beautiful.
Like the first one on the handout that shows, where the curbs are, what the width of the planting bed is, all that kind of thing. I don't know if that's available, but I will be happy to contact the village engineer and see if I can get a cross-section. And that would be helpful even if we go out into the field, because then we'll kind of know what's underground, if you will, and what we're dealing with.
Yep. So Kelly, if you want to, or Jim or something, and again, in the next couple of weeks, get something that's agreeable to everybody. We just show up for 10 minutes and walk the medians, and we might want to even take a look at 83. So.
I'm a visual person, so that would help me personally.
Yeah. Well, we'd hate to, we wouldn't want to get a contract, put everything in and go, oops. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're number one, we have to get a better idea of what kind of a median we're working with, whether it's 1 or 2 or
Exactly.
2 little ones or 1 big one or something like that, and get the plant list.
Yeah.
And try to get some costs. So
Yeah, I think if we have a plant list, then we can get costs for installation, costs for maintenance, that kind of thing. So I see that as being kind of key to how this whole thing's going to work. And then, yes, where we're going to put them and what the landscape island configuration is another factor. But I think starting with a plant list would be a good beginning.
plant list and a drawing of the medians that we're intending to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think probably not initially, but at some point I would think maybe the person that handles the other medians in the village, parking lot medians and such, he might help us with the cost and maybe give his thoughts on what would be suitable plantings that would fit to the area, look nice, not obstruct our view, and so on. I remember a long time ago, or it's not a real long time ago, but the old parking lots we had, with the one that's east of one that's east of Old McHenry. Which one is that, Jim?
The one we just redid?
Yes.
That's Archer, sorry.
Archer. Okay, but there was one big issue. It had island. The old parking lot had islands, but they had some plantings in there that grew so tall that you couldn't see around them, and it became a hazard. I don't think we want to get into that with anything on Old McHenry Road. It may be, if we're not too close to the intersection with the median, I think we may have a little more flexibility.
Jim, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Would the engineer know how deep those the planting areas are in the median?
I'm
They don't
I'm hopeful that I can obtain a cross section like you see on the first page of the handout
Yeah.
that I've given you. And actually, I thought that was one of the things that was really interesting too. It gives you some typical specifications, if you will, about landscape islands and their construction
Yeah.
and the compacted base. And I know going to work, they just did this a few years ago in Route 14 out here by me. And that was one of the things that I saw. Not only did they compact the soil inside the planting area, but they were also throwing junk in there. There was concrete and garbage and all kinds of stuff. And I'm thinking, how are these plants going to survive, you know?
Yeah.
And they've replaced many, many trees in there. So I thought that was a really interesting point that was brought up in this successful medians information that I found. And, you know, that kind of begs the question, how much prep work is going to need to be done to make this successful? Or will the natives be, you know, more forgiving, if you will, of poorer conditions and thrive in those circumstances?
It will be one of the criteria we'll want to take into account. There are some plants that are tolerant of poor soils, I think is the way that they talk about it, or heavy clay. And so those may be a better choice for us.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see what I can get from our engineer if he can give me some insight into a cross section and how those are typically constructed, and you know what's in those planting areas.
It'd be interesting to know how deep they are.
Yes.
I mean, for rooting, you know, but I would hate to see something really big in there and destroy it with the roots, you know, or not make it be able to grow, you know, if it's not deep enough.
Mhm.
Well, do we want to pick a date or?
I think one of the first things, if you want to pick a weekend date, or with Jim in mind, you want to pick a late afternoon date.
It doesn't have to be weekend. We might have a football game one of these days.
Yeah.
Let me see what I can get from Jeff, and I'd like to distribute that to you all. If you have a date in mind, that's fine. It gives me a deadline to work against. And if we have any preliminary thoughts about plants, I think that would be good if you could get that to me. And then we've got at least a couple of things that I can send back out and everybody can look at.
Okay, then we can work out a date. I'm trying to find, here we are. The name of that person that Milieu Landscaping belongs to is Brian Frank, I believe. And at some point, we may ask him to have a conversation with us too, if he doesn't mind.
Yeah, and I can contact him and see what their level of expertise is with doing this type of planting in this situation.
Yeah, I would think with all of the villages and highways and roadsides that he works on now, he's probably pretty knowledgeable, hopefully, about what will work and what won't. Brian Frank.
It would be a good source of information, so.
So do you, and you can get a drawing, I guess, Jeanette, you've already started looking at plants, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I've got 3 so far that we could consider. And all I've looked at is for salt. I don't know about pollution and compacted soil on those. So there's some more work to be done.
Okay. But then if we get the drawings, or at least measurements, for the median or two that we want to consider, and then we'll start looking at a plant list. And I guess one of the lines I remember from the board, I don't know whether you made the emphasis or whether the board did, Jim, but it said something about we don't, I got the impression we don't expect this to be done too quickly.
Yes, and
They
that's
don't
true.
want to rush into things.
Well, and part of it is a fiscal concern, and with COVID and everything, resources are uncertain at this time. But again, if we could put some sort of document together, some sort of plan or a large memorandum or something that could be used as a reference tool for the future, I see a lot of value in that.
I did too. And we don't expect to commit any funds for several months. And it might even be spring before you'll be able to
Right.
use the shovel. But we can work on it beforehand and see how it goes. When you get the drawings, will you just set a date? I would be willing. I'm pretty flexible, retired and all, but I would prefer a weekday or late afternoon or something like that, rather than weekend. Although I'm available for a meeting in the weekend also.
I would go anyway. The other thing we would like to consider possibly is once we get the plans, Jim, is to find out how many square feet we have. So
Yeah.
we say, hey, we're dealing with, when we go to the village board, we say, we've got 1,800 square feet, and we figure it's going to cost $17.50 a square foot to plant. And so give them some hard numbers. And again, once we get your engineering and once an on-site visit, I think we can come up with some square footage and come up with some costs.
We may be able to pull some of that down from the aerial photos that the county has. There's a tool on there where you can calculate area, and it's not going to be, like going out there and having a surveyor or something do it, but it should give us an order of magnitude as to, the square footages that we're dealing with.
Yep. And on site, we can just use a simple footprint. We can mark it off. But let's get some idea. Are we talking 100 square feet or 1,000 square feet or 2,000 square feet? So maybe we can zero that in. And based on what it costs per square foot, you say, hey, we've got 2,000 square feet, but we can only afford 1,000 square feet.
Do we want to assemble this data and have it back to the commission and then set a date for a field trip?
I would think a field trip would give us a lot of insight as to how wide the median is or when we get the plan. And again, we've got to say, well, the median might be 10 feet. And again, maybe Milou or somebody else will say, hey, if you got a 10-foot median, you only put 5 foot worth of plants in there. You need 2.5 foot or 3 foot on either side. We don't know. We don't know if we're going to go curb to curb with the plants or, hey, just use the middle third. So if it's 9 feet, you put 3 feet in the center, or do we put 4 feet in the center? We don't know yet. We've got to determine that.
I guess I have a note. Excuse me, Maggie.
Oh, that's okay. No, I was just saying, I think visually being there to see it will give us a better idea. Even if we say it's, like you said, 10, 12 feet, until you physically see it and know what it is that you're looking for obstructions and what you don't want to obstruct and vice versa, I think will help get a better idea too.
Right. And I don't know what size curbs we're working with on that median, whether that's something that will keep the traffic out of the median.
Yeah.
Or just give them something to bounce over. But I think we can get it together, get some at least material to look at, and arrange a meeting, and we can look at it in person. Okay?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So I will assemble data, I will get that back out to the commission, and then we will set a date.
Okay.
Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
Sounds good, Jim.
Jim, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I was just curious, Jeanette, what trees or flowers or plants did you find on the list of 3, I think you narrowed it down to? what did you find that would survive?
Well, I won't say that they work the best. This was only talking about salt tolerance,
Yes.
and I haven't checked them for other parameters. And I did not look at the trees, but the grasses were switchgrass and little blue stem.
Ah,
And the flowering plant was the penstemon,
what
which
was
is
it?
a spring blooming plant.
What's it called?
Penstemon,
Oh, okay.
beard tongue is a common name for it.
So the brown-eyed Susans would not be good choices.
They were not on this list, and I don't consider this list to be comprehensive. It was just a place to start. I wanted to get some idea of how many things on here were native, and the vast majority of them were not native plants.
Sure.
And then of the ones that were, what might be promising. And like I said, I took off the one other flowering plant because it likes to be wet, and a
Yes.
median is not a place to be wet.
Sure. Right. We talked to Jim. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was 3D design for plantings along 22 once that project is finished. I think
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure who we talked to, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yes, go ahead.
yes, and I asked him, I just thought it would be pretty, what he thought of putting redbud trees along there, just because they're so gorgeous in the springtime. And his response was positive, and which surprised me a little bit, but I was thrilled to hear it, so I didn't argue with him. And it's only preliminary, but maybe maybe a collaboration with him could be nice, because then they everything could coordinate, especially if that's along 22. And I don't know what his plans are. I don't know if they're finalized or I'm just throwing it out there.
Mhm.
When is that Route 22 project expected to be started?
Yes, when is that Route 22 project expected to be started?
It's a very
It's
good
been
question.
pushed back.
Done by now.
We know we're on the list. And the way you get off the list and get the bulldozers out there, or the cranes, is when they have the money. So
Yep.
I think Jeff's best guess, and Jim, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's between 2022 and 2024 at this point in time.
Yeah, 2022 or 24 or 25, but yeah, you're correct. We've been on the 5-year list forever, and I think
Yeah.
we just got pushed out on the 5-year list again.
We did, even though it's pretty much shovel ready,
Yes.
practically speaking. Yeah.
Well, I was amazed at all of the plantings that they've got planned for those roadsides. I didn't see any median plantings, but the roadsides, they're going to have so many trees and shrubs, you'll be like a park.
That would be
Well,
fine with me, but I don't think there is any median planned for.
Well, I didn't see a drawing of any median, but
Yeah, I don't think they have they don't own the land.
maybe not.
They're still getting, land on some of those properties.
Do we know if any of those plantings are going to be natives or just whatever the landscaper recommends?
Well, that's a really good question. And I think that's one of the reasons I tuned in tonight. I think that your input would be really, really terrific to coordinate things like that. I presume this gentleman knows what he's doing, but I don't know that native plants would be a priority unless we let him know that.
I did send you the landscape plans for Route 22. Rita, your take on it is a little different than what I heard when I brought this to the board as a report. I think it was in September. I thought Bobby had indicated that excess plants might be something that we would consider in the medians, and I thought the CSC was going to be looking at the suitability of the plant list that they were showing on 22 for median plantings. But I don't see anything wrong with them commenting on the nature of those plantings, and particularly from a natural perspective.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, if we could coordinate it going forward throughout the village, I
Yeah.
mean, how nice would that be? You know, it'd be beautiful.
Yeah. And you got members of the CSC, you should have gotten the PDFs of the Route 22 plantings.
Yes.
There are red buds in there.
There are, because I love them, and I suggested them, and he said, oh, that would be beautiful. And I thought, oh, that was easy. But I
Yeah.
don't know if it's smart. I don't know if it's, you know, advisable.
Yeah, don't know how many either, so.
Yes,
But
correct.
those are going to be plantings along the edges of the right-of-way and not in the medians.
Right, correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Is this a state, is this a state project, Jim?
Correct. It is the state.
And Jim, is that the list of plants that's there on the drawing and what I'm looking at as very tiny print?
Yeah.
Me
You
too.
should be able to blow that up, though, to
And it's not
almost
written,
infinity, to where
It's
it
not-
gets all blurry.
it's not
Yeah,
written in
blow it
stone.
up to where it's blurry.
It's suggested, you know, now would be the time to do the planning, right, Jim?
Oh, yeah, I agree. I think particularly with being pushed back on the list,
Yes,
if there's comments about native plantings along there, yeah, get those to me as quickly as you can if you have them, and we can try to put that in motion. And I like your idea, Rita, of keeping things the same. So we use this as a model, a pattern, if you will, and
yes,
then future plantings are consistent with the model.
yes. It would just be so very pretty.
If we get our act together for our medians here, we could carry that over to 22 and we could carry some weight.
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah,
Could
Absolutely.
try, yeah.
absolutely. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, the state can always tell us to go pound sand, but at least we tried. I mean, we had input.
I think there was a trade-off on that, Jim, and we're the ones paying 3D, so,
Yeah.
you know, what the hey, right? This is the time to do something beautiful and continue it throughout, which I just think would be really, really fun.
No, I think giving them our input is worthwhile. What they do with it is up to them, but, if they're willing to work with us, then win-win.
I think we have more say than we think.
Mhm.
So we'll see.
Okay. I'm gonna have to get me a magnifying glass before I can read that.
Yeah, me too.
You should be able to blow it up, Kelly. There should be a
Yeah.
little plus
Yeah.
icon there that will blow that thing up into infinity.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. When I printed it, I had it print to fit.
Oh, yeah.
I should have said
Yeah.
print to read.
I think I hit print to read and boy, I got 25, 30 pages and it's equally confusing. It's equally confusing, so
I don't have many pages, but I can't read any of them.
I need a ton of Scotch tape to put it all together.
Jim, can
Well, I think, I still say I'm amazed at how many plantings they're putting in that thing. I don't think I've noticed other highway widening projects where they put that much money into the plantings along the roadside.
Well, I think the big question is they've got it all planned. Are they actually going to do it or are the funds available? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's where getting stuck on the 5-year list
Yeah.
perpetually comes in.
yeah, but
If we take a few plants out, it won't cost as much. Maybe we can get in sooner.
and
Yeah.
we've got nothing to lose by putting it out there.
Oh, yeah.
No, I agree with that.
There's always the possibility of, public-private partnerships,
I agree with
I
that.
mean, what the heck? That's what Long Grove is all about. Can I bring up another question, Jim? Do you have time? Do you have a minute?
It's fine with me.
What are we gonna do about Harbor Chase? Do y'all have any ideas on that?
They've been working on that. There is a landscape plan there. I don't know where we're at with that. I was out there a while ago with the village arborist as well as representatives from Harbor Chase. I'll have to coordinate with Dave on that, with his leaving. That's one of those projects that we're going to have to pick up the slack on somehow. We had been working with them though, and they had made some progress. That's all supposed to be natural in through there.
It's horrible.
But I don't think they maintained it well to start with, and I don't think they've maintained it well to get it up to speed.
I talked to Ginny Michaud about it because she has a gazillion times more experience with this than I do. I just say it looks ugly, and Jenny said, yeah, it does. And I said, what's the antidote? And she, in her opinion, she said that the weeds, the really big weeds, are now so established that they have, in her opinion, they have no choice at this point in time but to mow all of that down,
Yes.
turn it. And she said, as much as I hate using chemicals, that's the only thing going to get rid of those weeds that are, now so ingrained in the soil.
And that,
go ahead, sorry.
Not to that extent, but those are the conclusions that we came to with the site visit when the village arborist was there.
Yeah,
The
because
weeds needed to be knocked down. They needed to cut those plants back and give them a chance to get established and overtake the weeds.
Real quick, and I hate to, for my sake and Maggie both being relatively new, Jim, can you update us the concern and just give us a quick background on that?
Harbor Chase is located at the corner of 83 and 53.
Right.
There used to be a bank property there. There's a scenic corridor that runs through there,
Right.
and they were going to replant that with natural plantings for an approved landscape plan. They did that, but they did not do, and Jeanette can probably chime in here, they did not do the maintenance required to get those firmly established. So we had problems with weeds taking over. So instead of becoming a nice natural type landscaping, it just turned into a weed patch. And it's not very attractive, although there was a lot of junk that was in there when the bank was there. The scenic corridor, the berm had not been maintained, so they went in there and actually cleaned out all the junk that was there, and there was just a handful of desirable trees that remained. And they were going to use natural plantings to supplement what was already there, but they did not do it properly from the get-go, so the effect that was desired was not achieved.
And is it Harbor Chase that is raising their hand saying, hey, we don't like it, or who's?
Harbor Chase agrees that it's an eyesore and it is not helpful to them in terms of the image that they want to project.
Right, okay.
Not only to the community, but to their clientele.
I think, well, not me. One of Jenny's, for those of you who don't know, Jenny Michaud and her husband maintain Tony Dean's 60 acres. And that property is total eye candy. Her suggestion was that Harbor Chase is not going to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish with the mow and go fellas that they have, mowing that piece of land, that they need to hire a place like, what is it? Prairie grass. They're out in
tall grass.
Tall grass. Yeah, they're out in Schaumburg, and there's several other companies that maintain natural landscapes. And she said, obviously it's more expensive in the short term, but it becomes beautiful and is less expensive in the long term. So I'm just a conduit. She knows tons more than I do. So
Yeah, tall grass does have a very good reputation.
I've seen what they do, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, we worked with them on Arborea too, or Arborea, excuse me.
How'd that go?
It went well. Actually, I believe Arborea accepted the recommendations from Tallgrass and implemented them.
Is that right?
I
That's
believe
good.
they did, yes.
That's good to know. Good. Then I'll stop being cynical for now.
Wait till you see the project done. You gotta wait to see the completion, right?
So that's all I just had those concerns or comments, whatever. Thank you. I think y'all do a fabulous job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, are we set for that, prepare for our meeting to be scheduled later, right? And then the last couple of items on the agenda. Oh, updated plant list, that's still coming along, right, Jeanette?
It hasn't gotten much attention with
haven't heard
not
anybody-
having native plant sales this year. There wasn't much available to do a comparison with. But that is my plan, is to look at what the native plant sales have. There's typically 4 of them in this area. And then also some of the native seed companies, to see what they're offering. And then use that to pare down the list to something a little more manageable than 1,700.
Yeah. So it's nice to talk about things that are available, at least, and
Yes.
maybe reasonably priced and so on.
Well, especially if we say if there are other native plants, we'll be willing to consider them. We're not cutting out the other one. We're just not asking people to wade through that, especially your homeowners who are looking to do something on their own.
Yes, good idea. And the meeting calendar, I didn't check the dates. I don't have a 2021 calendar yet, but I'm assuming they're all fine. Does anyone else have any issues about the dates established for our meeting in 2021? We don't have.
That's pretty much status quo from what you've done in previous years. I didn't note any conflicts with holidays or anything like that. So.
The one thing I noticed is that we do have one set up for July 7th, and that's fairly close to the 4th of July, when a lot of people are used to be getting away for a little bit. So that was the only one that I was concerned about.
What we've done in the past with that, if you want, and now would be the time to do it, is simply we would delete that meeting, and then any business would be automatically carried over to the second meeting. I believe we did that either, I don't know if it was this year or last year, but that's how we've handled that in the past. So if you would like to go ahead and essentially cancel that meeting and then just push any business to the second meeting in July, because you're going into winter mode now with November, December, January, February. We will only have one scheduled meeting per month. The other months we have 2. So if that's the preference of the commission, just let me know, and we will need a motion to approve the calendar, partly for Open Meetings Act. And then I will go ahead and make that change.
I think we should, I agree. I think we just treat that as the second meetings in January, February, put on the calendar, no meeting. If we find it's necessary to have a meeting for some special project or something that's on an emergency type status, we could have a meeting. It doesn't have to be on July 7th. It can be another day of the week if we like. Just, I would say put it down as no meeting.
Okay, and then any business would be carried over to the second meeting date.
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing?
I agree.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Cinco de Mayo, we have to have margaritas and chips and salsa.
Chips.
So we would need a motion to approve the 2021 calendar with that change as discussed.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Say nay. I don't hear any nays, so the motion
Thank you.
passed. I think we're through with everything on the agenda, Jim, unless you think there's something we short sheeted or whatever.
I have nothing further for you this evening.
Anybody else have any issues they want to raise in our last minute or two?
I just want to welcome Maggie to the committee.
Oh, I
Thank
do
you.
too. I'm looking forward to the day when we have a real meeting in a real building.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thanks, Maggie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you.
So
Do I hear a motion
have
to
the,
adjourn?
adjourn the meeting.
I
I
second.
second. the motion.
Okay, I hear a motion made in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? I hear none. The motion carries. So another
All right. Thank you
good
all.
meeting.
Good night, Tom.
Appreciate it.
Maggie.
Night.
Thank you for putting all
Have a
this
good
together
evening.
for us, Jim.
Bye now.
Bye,
Bye.
Kelly. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Bye, Brian.